Well, this week, the Biden administration reached out to North Korea to resume negotiations to denuclearize. Now, North Korea's response: it would be a waste of time. Now, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is pressing China to convince North Korea to abandon its nuclear program. We're joined this morning live via Zoom by Dr. Laura Lerman. She's the professor of international politics at Wright State University. This is sort of a developing situation that's kind of been happening all week long, but there's been sort of a different atmosphere between North Korea and the U.S. since Biden has taken over office. So what has sort of been happening? Has this sort of been building?
So this week, the Biden administration conducted their first Asia tour. You had Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin travel to meet with our allies, namely Japan and South Korea. And while they were meeting with our allies, we were also conducting the joint military exercises between the United States and South Korea. In the midst of that, Kim Jong-un's sister, who is in her own right a senior official in North Korea, made some very bellicose statements talking about not causing stink with their first step. And it's just the beginning of what we're going to see with increasingly challenging rhetoric with the United States. They're going to test Joe Biden because they know that President Biden is going to take a different tack with North Korea than his predecessor, Donald Trump.
Yeah, which is incredibly interesting. And you mentioned even just moments ago when we were chatting that North Korea has been pretty quiet the past year, but now things are sort of heating back up. What do you think has kind of been going on behind the scenes?
That's an excellent point. Because of the COVID crisis, North Korea, and it's actually hard to even say this, but North Korea is more isolated than ever. For over a year now, they have closed their borders to all international traffic. In fact, we have very few international observers in North Korea, fewer now than ever. And also, because of the closing of the borders and the coronavirus pandemic, we also believe that the North Korean economy has contracted by as much as 10%. This means that North Korea could be on the verge of a humanitarian crisis, very similar to the devastating famines that they faced in the early 1990s. And so we know that isolated countries and isolated leaders do not behave well. So I think this is all part of a ramping up of a test of the Biden administration and the way they're going to approach North Korea, and a desire by North Korea to try to garner more attention on the world stage.
Now, do you have any fear that, this could be anything more than just some strong rhetoric between the two countries?
Well, North Korea is known for its very strong rhetoric, particularly with the United States. They also, though, do back their rhetoric up with actions. And I would be very surprised if we get as far as the summer without some sort of a weapons test. In fact, in last October, during their annual military parade, they unveiled one of the largest ICBMs, definitely larger than what they had tested in 2017. It's an intercontinental ballistic missile. So I do think they're gearing up for some sort of a test. The degree to which that will be provocative is yet to be seen.
All right, this is definitely something we're going to have to keep our eyes on. Dr. Laura Lerman from Wright State University, thank you so much for breaking this down so simply for us so we can understand. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.